Good morning. Welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm Michaela Sievers, your service associate, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm joined today by our minister, Reverend Dr. Barbara Queeman. Today's music is provided by Julie Morris and Amy Austin. And today's tech team is Larry Sherwood, Deborah Mensch, and Kathy Partridge. As I say the welcome words, I invite those of you on Zoom to turn on your video and shift into gallery mode, and those in person to look around you. Open your heart and welcome everyone here. I invite you to be present in this moment. Deeply listen and imagine how authenticity and acceptance can change the way we interact with ourselves and each other. You are all welcome here today. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, skin tones and sizes, gifts and challenges that come together in your uniqueness, you are welcome here. In all the ways you experience and express gender, you are welcome here. In the beauty that is who you love and how you love, you are welcome here. In all the ways you make your living and the places you are from, you are welcome here. With all of the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here today. No matter how long you are away, nor how soon you will return, you are welcome here. Whether your body and soul want support today, or you arrive with the capacity to support others, you are welcome here. You're invited to join us with a curious mind, a loving heart, and a willing spirit. We welcome you today. We commit ourselves to being a center for spiritual exploration and justice making, and to anti-racism and anti-oppression work within and beyond our congregation. I would also like to recognize that yesterday, October 26th, was Intersex Awareness Day, and we affirm the dignity and universal human rights of intersex people. If you're new here, we're glad you found us, and hope that in this community, whether you're with us in person or virtually, you can experience the warmth and love of this congregation. Please come back a few times to really get to know us. We have many opportunities during the week for social connection and spiritual growth. Those on Zoom can check out the links in the chat to help you get connected. Those in person can stop by the welcome table in our foyer for fellowship information and our newcomer form. It's also on the QR code in the back of the hymnal. If you would like to view a simple order of service for today's service on your phone, please scan the QR code on the screens now, or click on the link in the Zoom chat. Everyone on Zoom is welcome to stay for casual conversation following the service. And if you're here in person today, you're welcome to coffee hour in the fellowship hall. If you're joining us on Zoom, please feel free to greet each other in the chat. And if you're a newcomer, let us know so we can greet you. We'd love to know who is among us. Those of you in the sanctuary, I invite you to greet each other now, and after a moment, Julie will play the piano to bring us all back together.
Get this ready up here?
Yep. Yeah, I'm done with those pages. Ooh.
Okay. How do you want to get rid of them?
Do you need that one?
No, that was up here.
Okay.
I think somebody.
Sure.
A good morning to everyone. It's good to see you this morning. I'm Reverend, I'm Reverend Barbara, the grateful minister of this congregation. My pronouns are she and her. It's time now for the uniquely you ritual of lighting our chalice. At home, if you have a chalice handy, I invite you to light it. Here in the fellowship, Michaela will light our chalice while we repeat the chalice lighting words. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, the energy of action. And as we move more deeply into our spiritual space, listen to the sound of the ringing bowl. Listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It calls us in the silence and through the noise and busyness of our daily lives. It calls us in the brightness of the day and the darkness of the night, in times of hope and despair. Listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It doesn't matter what you call it, for it has no name and many different names. The Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of compassion, the Spirit of hope, the Spirit of justice. Listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It's calling to you and to me. It's calling us to greater wholeness, greater connection, greater service, greater love. It's calling us to heal the brokenness within ourselves and in the world. It's calling us to live more deeply. It's calling us to beauty. It's calling us to laugh and dance and sing, to live through life's pain and sorrow, to live courageously and kindly, to speak our truth in love, and to bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. It's calling us into community. It's calling us into the greater life of all. Listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling us to worship together this morning and be glad. Our opening hymn this morning is calling us to wondrous love. I invite you to turn in the gray hymnals which are under the seats in front of you. Hymn number 18, What Wondrous Love Is This? Please rise in body or in spirit.
What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this that brings my heart such bliss and takes away the pain of my soul, and takes away the pain of my soul. When I was sinking down, when I was me gathered round, oh my soul, friends to me gathered round, oh my soul, to love and to all friends I will sing, to love and to all friends I will sing. To love and to all friends, oh, pain and sorrow mend, with thanks unto the end, I will sing, with thanks unto the end, I will sing.
Friends to me, gather round. One year ago today, I walked through the doors of this sanctuary for the first time. As our fellowship welcome words state, I was someone who needed support that day. I grew up in a Unitarian Universalist fellowship, and in many ways, that community was my village. When I needed support again, I sought out this fellowship, and through your gift of deep listening, this has been a year of healing and finding my way back to myself. During my Path to Membership class, Reverend Lydia shared that becoming a member is not just about making a commitment to the fellowship. Becoming a member is also about making a commitment to yourself. For me, that commitment started as simply showing up here every Sunday and listening. However, we see things not as they are, but as we are. At first, I brought a lot of baggage with me. I was listening, but my experiences, expectations, and biases altered how I heard. I was not yet deeply listening, but many of you here were. Through conversations, I began to figuratively and sometimes literally unload that baggage. I believe that, hopefully, we are ever changing and ever growing. Human beings are dynamic, and who we are can change moment to moment. Thus, it is imperative that we are fully present right here and right now, noticing who we are in this moment to understand what parts of ourselves we project onto others when we try to listen. We must listen to and know ourselves before we can recognize the lens we see each other through. Matt Kahn said, "People can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves." I've gotten to know myself better this year through your gift of deep listening, and I have felt more welcome to show up as my authentic self. Deep listening happens within conversations which are more than just taking turns listening and speaking. More than the sum of their parts, these conversations take on a life of their own, and deep listening creates the presence of us, more than just you or me. When we feel the presence and life in the sacred space of deep listening, we don't need to fear being misheard or misunderstood. I know that I am seen for who I am, here and now. not who I was or who I'm expected to be. Being truly known is a gift that I have received from you through your deep listening. As we continue to change, to create space for conversations when we have conflict or need support, and do our best to grow together, I want to be present, to deeply listen, to see us as we are now, and hopefully share that gift of authenticity through deep listening with you.
May I invite the lay leaders to come forward, please, as well? Friends, it's time now for our new member ceremony. Everyone has a role in this ceremony. I invite you to turn to the buff-colored page, or look at the screen, or online check in the Zoom chat for this ceremony. Each of us will have a role in this ceremony later on, in a few minutes. The life of a religious community is filled with both small and great occasions. Because the core of this free congregational faith is its congregations and their members, among the most sacred events is the welcoming of new members. Will those who have completed the introduction to membership class and indicated their wish to become members of this congregation please come forward? And friends, I want to indicate one member is online, Nancy Shackelford, and another member can't be here today. So we have 4 total joining this class of new members this morning. You'll hear about all of them. You'll hear about all of them in the course of this ceremony. My friends, it is indeed an honor to welcome you to membership in the Boulder Valley UU Fellowship. This is a ceremony of covenanting. A covenant is a promise. Membership invites you into several covenants. A covenant of challenge, because the membership process asks several commitments from members. Membership signifies that you support the purposes and the programs of this church, outlined in bylaws and mission and covenant statements. Membership is also a covenant of hope. Here in this congregation, you can find acceptance, community, friendship, and more. When life gets tough, you can draw inspiration from this community. If expectations sour, you can find renewal here. If you grow cynical, you can be reminded how deeds of persons who have come before you have made a difference in the world. And if you find yourself just plain frazzled, you can be renewed by having fun here at church. Above all, you can draw from the deep well of love and respect that is the promise of this faith we share together. Finally, membership asks each of you to covenant to celebrate the best of this spiritual community. This congregation has already been enhanced by the presence of each of you 4 new members.
Members of this congregation, it is now your turn. Would first the members of this congregation rise in body or spirit and read the covenant statement printed on the handout, and posted in the Zoom chat. We welcome you, new members, into this community. We promise to walk with you as you experience the challenges and hopes of membership in the shared ministry of this congregation.
It's yours.
And new members.
We will support members and friends of this congregation through faith in our hearts and hands, through stewardship of our talents and resources.
And now will everyone, members and friends, as you have already risen in body or spirit, read the covenant of membership. We
covenant to build a religious community
together
that is guided by love, sustained by respectful relationships, and committed to action to make a better world. We celebrate this common purpose
whenever we gather and do our best to abide by this covenant and to support this covenant.
My friends, how about a warm round of applause for all the new members? Welcome, 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 welcome. So glad you're here. Welcome. Thank you, friends. You may be seated.
Welcome all. Each week, we remind ourselves of the abundance of our lives and this community by giving half our plate away to those organizations that share our values. This week's half plate will go to Sunflower Seeds Ukraine. Sunflower Seeds provides medical gear, equipment such as body armor and helmets, and warm clothing to the freedom fighters in Ukraine. Your contributions in the past have made a huge difference in the ability of Ukrainian forces to fight for themselves. Sunflower Seeds provides both tactical and humanitarian support to the people of Ukraine. And for more information, go to their website, sunflowerseedsukraine.org. You can text your donation to the number on the screen, or place a donation in the offering plate as it passes. Please give generously as you so often do. And as our musical reflection begins, I invite you, center your being in the present. Take in your surroundings and also listen to your own inner voice in these next few moments.
For the work and witness of this congregation and Sunflower Seeds Ukraine, your gifts are gratefully accepted. So one more good morning to everyone, just in case you're joining in recently in the last few minutes. I'm Reverend Barbara, the grateful minister of this congregation. I have a reading about deep listening. When someone deeply listens to you, it's like holding out a dented cup you have had since childhood and watching it fill up with cold, fresh water. When it balances on the top of the rim, you're understood. When it overflows and touches your skin, you are loved. When someone deeply listens to you, the room where you stay starts a new life, and the place where you write your first poem begins to glow in your mind's eye. It's as if gold had been discovered. When someone deeply listens to you, your bare feet are on the earth, and the beloved land that seemed distant is now at home within you. Some inspiration from the poet John Fox. I recently heard a story about farmers in the Midwest that seems fitting as we head into colder weather, since some regions in Colorado have already had significant snowfall. In days gone by, that is before cell phones, at the first sign of a blizzard, farmers would run a rope from the back door of the house out to the barn. This rope was a lifeline. Many farmers knew of someone who had gone out to their barns to tend the livestock during a blizzard and could not find their way back, freezing to death within a few dozen yards of their warm kitchens. Lifelines, like these ropes, provide important connections for us. Connections between turbulence we might be caught up in and relatively safety in our homes, in our harbors and our homes. Safety nets, important for farmers of old, important for our modern lives. I expect many of us have at one time or other felt like we are living in a blizzard, caught up in all too busy schedules, frantic responses to pressure, relentless attempts to counter assaults and abuse, assaults on peacemaking, assaults on Mother Earth, assaults on economic equity, assaults on our political system, especially during this election season, which may well determine the future of democracy in this country. Blizzards all around us. Sometimes we may be so caught up in the blizzards of life that we're unaware of or perhaps indifferent to positive acts of grace and kindness which are immediately around us, especially small but connecting gestures, such as a warm hand inviting us into a gathering, or 2-second eye contact that says welcome. This is one reason I want to greet you at the end of the service. Those 2-second eye contacts really matter. They matter to me a lot. I can get to know you better. Small acts, which also strengthen trust among us. Subtle, brief connections, or perhaps larger, obvious lifelines, which invite us to expressions of gratitude and grace and trust and love with one another. Not only through the hand or the eye contact, we also find lifelines through deeply listening to one another. Not only to those short 2-second greetings, but also through deep listening to major public speeches or lectures. Deep listening generates deep expressions of gratitude for this interconnected web of life we are all privileged to enjoy. Deep listening, our theme in Soul Matters and Worship this month, which I trust many of you have reflected on in your Soul Matters small groups. And I'm interested to see how many of you are in covenant groups where you've explored the deep listening. Wonderful, wonderful. So perhaps you saw in the Soul Matters packet the inspiration about listening from Mr. Rogers this month, who said that listening is where love begins. So today, let's consider deep listening, a vehicle for expressions of gratitude and love. As you think on the words of our poet, John Fox, that when someone deeply listens to you, your bare feet are on the earth, and the beloved land that seemed distant is now at home within you. I invite you to think on what deep listening sounds and feels like. How do you practice it? How does deep listening create threads and lifelines which connect you to other humans, other living creatures, Mother Earth, and yet more connections? Indeed, following up on my description of spirituality as connections at 4 levels of existence, which I offered a few weeks ago, I would suggest that deep listening truly can be considered an important spiritual practice. Deep listening also requires mindfulness, which is a spiritual practice. Deep listening to one another is also core to not only creating and writing covenant, but especially to living in covenant. Listening as a universalist mode of communication occurs in many formats. Listening is central to the human condition, innate in the human condition, whether through words and sounds for the hearing, or signing and writing for the hearing impaired. Meaning can also be conveyed by listening to sounds from Mother Earth, or listening to and knowing the sound of our favorite pet, for example, when it's feeding time, or listening to our bodies as they warn us of stress and discomfort, as well as joy and fitness. I've developed some careful habits of listening to my body. I don't know about you, but I have a few places that speak to me that there's stress in my soul, long before my mind or my feelings realize the stress. I know to pay attention to that crink in my neck or that tightness in my back. Indeed, deep listening, it's available through so many venues. So you might say, listening is easy. We do it all the time, right? What's so special about listening? We listen all day long. And because we also talk, perhaps a lot, others must be listening to what we're saying, right? But in all those trappings of communication, do we really listen well to one another? Or do we only hear one another? Do we listen deeply? That great theologian and actor, Alan Alda, once said, "Real listening is a willingness to let the other person change us. When I'm willing to let them change me, something happens between us that is more than a pair of dueling monologues." I invite you to think on how you've experienced Alan Alda's counsel. What do you understand as deep listening? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Do you know how to listen deeply? Would you say? I invite you to evaluate yourself. And can you focus your listening all the more deeply as circumstances require? How does deep listening strengthen your lifelines with others, other persons, other creatures, with Mother Earth? How does deep listening strengthen friendships? How does deep listening welcome newcomers, such as the folks we welcomed into the membership of this congregation today? Welcome again, new members. It takes particular attention to listen deeply. I invite you to think how you experience it, either as listener or speaker. Deep listening means we give undivided attention to the speaker, paying full attention to and inviting others into our very beings. We don't have other tapes running through our minds at the same time. Anybody ever do that? Anybody have tape players up there? Yeah. We aren't thinking of all the insightful things we'll say in response or as advice. When we listen deeply, we have no need to assert our own egos. We openly receive and welcome those we are listening to. Like a lifeline, welcoming another in from the cold. When we listen deeply, we merge with the speaking rhythm of the other, not interrupting or cutting off before others have completed their thoughts. Interrupting a speaker sends many messages, think on it, that the listener's words are more important or more interesting than the speaker's, or perhaps that their conversation is not a mutual dialogue, but instead a contest in which the interrupting listener aims to win. Even on a subconscious level, we know when someone we are talking to is not deeply listening through their body reactions, or the words they use in response, or the aura they emote. That says our words don't really matter. I invite you to think on if you've experienced this feeling, that the other person really isn't listening. I would also suggest that deep listening is in part culturally influenced. Geography and nationality are often determinants in conversation style, as are family habits. Some families are quite comfortable speaking over one another, speaking simultaneously, especially during heated topics such as politics. In addition also to nationality, I would suggest that gender often conditions listening habits. How many conversations or meetings I've been in during my long professional life when an idea or a contribution from one of my women colleagues is received at best with lukewarm reception. But the same idea from a male in the group is welcome highlighted and discussed further. Same goes for different standards for listening influenced by any number of other marginalized identities, from the voice of someone with physical challenges or non-binary gender identity and more. In our National Ministers Association, the UUMA, during large meetings when several hundred of us are online together, when conversation from the whole body is invited, we've started a practice we call progressive stack. That is, when the first several minutes of audience input is reserved for anyone who self-identifies as from a marginalized category, so to give upfront recognition of voices which might otherwise be glossed over. Progressive stack, it really does help bring the voices of the marginalized to the fore. Deep listening also generates what I've coined deep speaking. That is, in my experience, when I know that I'm in a setting where I'm being deeply listened to, I also engage in deep speaking, That is, trusting to say openly and honestly what is in my mind and my heart. In the words of the spiritual leader, Henry Nouwen, the beauty of deep listening is that those who are listened to start to feel accepted, start taking their words more seriously, and discovering their own true selves. Listening is a form of spiritual hospitality by which you invite strangers to become friends. Recalling Alan Alda again, he reminded us that the difference between true listening and pretending to listen is enormous. One is fluid, the other rigid. One is alive, the other stuffed. When we listen to one another deeply, we acknowledge that the other person matters. When we listen to one another, we grant the speaker a sense of voice. And by voice, I mean not only the vocalizing of words, but also the acknowledgement of the existence of the other. In the 1970s, the feminist theologian Nell Morton called us to hear each other into speech. That is, to better recognize everyone's contributions. Avoiding deep listening can deny the presence of the other, deny the right of the other to occupy space on the earth. Even shouting louder is no guarantee that one will be heard in the speech. Anybody ever do that? If you think you're not heard, you just talk louder and then it's surely going to get through? Yeah, right. How many times in our histories have voices calling for racial justice or sexual equality or economic rights not been listened to? How many times have world peace negotiations stalled because two sides can't hear one another? Is there any deep listening going on, for example, right now in the Middle East? Hearing into speech, it can transform lives. Listening is indeed spiritual hospitality. Listening is also important for accuracy of information we pass on. I'm sure some of you have experienced the phenomenon of two persons hearing exactly the same words, yet coming away with significantly different meaning. Does anybody remember the name telephone? As a sentence gets passed from person to person, it often changes dramatically from the beginning to the end. Indeed, human communication through speech, it's indeed a remarkable process. I sometimes wonder how we manage as much successful communication as we actually do for the complex process involved in listening. I want to close with yet some more reflection on circles of trust, which I've told you about before, and which depends on deep listening. Deep listening is core to circles of trust. This is a spiritual practice sponsored by the Center for Courage and Renewal. It's based on the writing of Parker Palmer. Circles of trust involves practicing distinct habits of speaking together. Habits we rarely encounter in everyday life. The practice is indeed countercultural. The title of one of Parker's early books, Let Your Life Speak, says it all about his view that our lives speak to us about the authentic self who was born in each of us, whom he calls the inner teacher. The more we learn to listen to that life speaking, the more authentically and richly we can experience this journey called life. When we come together in a circle of trust, we practice particular habits of speaking together. We relate to everyone in the entire group. We also relate in breakout groups of dyads and triads, as well as engaging in individual reflection through journaling, through drawing, through meditating, and much more. Especially through a practice called open and honest questions. We practice habits such as not interrupting one another, not anticipating what we think the other person will say, and we surely don't try to fix one another in our circles. I have never felt so deeply listened to as I have in this practice. It has taught me much about deep listening to others. In circles of trust, we call on particular tools, as I'll call them. Most important of these tools is grounding in common values expressed through what we call the touchstones. There's 11 of them. They contribute to developing habits of compassionate communication through deep listening. For example, one touchstone calls us to give and receive welcome. Another, to be present as fully as possible. Another, to attend to your own inner teacher, or to trust and learn from silence. The touchstone which has done the most to change my life and my ministry is this one. When the going gets rough, turn to wonder. When the going gets rough, turn to wonder. That is, when you encounter a person or a situation which you don't understand or which you disagree with, rather than immediately judging or dismissing or arguing against, you are invited to turn to wonder and curiosity, to ask, I wonder why you hold that view. I wonder why you took the action you did. By deeply listening to the other's response to such questions of curiosity, we create an expansiveness in which most can authentically come closer to understanding one another. When the going gets rough, turn to wonder. There's many other grounding tools in this program, which I'll introduce you to when we set up Circles of Trust. But let me also just briefly name one other practice in this courage work, as we call it. It's called a clearness committee. Has anybody in Quaker practice experienced clearness committees? Yeah, great, a few of you. Wonderful, wonderful. In a clearness committee, a group of 4 or 5 usually spends about 2 hours asking open and honest questions of a focus person, so to invite the focus person into deeper discerning of personal decisions or dilemmas. I've been a focus person several times. The experiences were transformative, especially in one on the heels of a very deep hurt I experienced in ministry. I've never before felt so heard and so loved. And after a month of holding it in, it was the first time I could cry about that experience. I've never felt so heard, not from my family of origin, not from my friends, not even from my minister colleagues. I felt heard and I felt seen and very deeply listened to. Such experiences can transform lives. Such experiences can bring wholeness and connections and can lead to forgiveness and reconciliation. As Desmond Tutu said, there's no future without forgiveness. So I trust that soon after the new year, we can offer Circles of Trust, even as I begin to incorporate specific practices in other parts of my ministry here. Circles of Trust has served me well in several other interim ministries I've recently served. Now, here at the ship, we will need some conversations about how to administer the program in the current absence of staffing and administration for adult religious education. But I don't want to let that absence prevent us from going forward with Circles of Trust. How do you listen deeply to others? How do you experience others listening deeply to you? We are all invited to practice intentional deep listening, as well as deep speaking, with all those we interact with. Deep listening helps us realize and live into the interconnected web of life. illustrating indeed how much we do need one another. May we all be assured that just as we need one another, that others are there for us on regular days as well as on those days of whiteout blizzards in our lives. May we feel gratitude for our capacity to listen deeply and to be heard by others. May we all celebrate this community of free religion and this community of life which we share together. May all this be so. And when we do engage in those conversations of deep listening and deep speaking, we fill one another with loving kindness. Let's sing about loving kindness in the teal hymnals. Number 1031, 1031, filled with loving kindness. Please rise in body or in spirit.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May I be filled, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
Line, please remain risen in body or spirit as we extinguish our chalice. Please join in the words to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth. I invite you to reach out, touch the arm, the hand, the spirit of those in this room as well as online, as well as our friends and neighbors around this community. For those of you who have come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those of you who have come here seeking life, may life return your affection. For those of you who have come here seeking a better way, may that way be found and the courage to take it step by step. When you leave here this morning, go in peace. When you return to this sacred space, return in love and in hope and in deeply listening. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Namaste. Blessed be. I invite you to resume your seats for announcements and the postlude.
You are all invited to our all-congregation startup retreat this coming Saturday, November 2nd, from 9 a.m. to noon. See details and connections on the bulletin board or at the welcome desk. Reverend Summer Albayati will lead this covenant conversation between our congregation and our new interim minister, Reverend Barbara, to kick off this interim period. Come share food, love, and ideas. The Fall Inquirer series continues today. The Inquirer series is a set of informal, small group gatherings for visitors and members who would like to know more about various aspects of the fellowship. Today, Reverend Barbara will be with us for a question and answer with the minister. If you'd like to participate, feel free to grab a cup of coffee in the fellowship hall, some refreshments, and join our discussion circle at the front of the sanctuary at about 11:30 a.m. We'll conclude at 12:15. Next week's Inquirer series will be about our programs for spiritual exploration for adults and youth. Election night and the day after. We are here for you. In the prospect of election night, as you are hopeful or anxious, maybe both, come celebrate and or commiserate with friends at BVUUF's watch party on Tuesday, November 5th from 6 to 10 p.m. Some may choose to watch the votes counted on the big screen in Fellowship Hall, and others may seek the quietude of soft music and gentle singing in the sanctuary. To help ease our anxieties or fuel your enthusiasm, we'll have a popcorn machine on hand. Plus, we're asking attendees to bring snacks and or non-alcoholic beverages to share with each other. The next day, November 6th, 1 to 6:30 p.m., the fellowship will be open for those who need to decompress, whether it's to talk to one of our ministers, join a meditation or movement group, or just reflect in the sanctuary. A schedule of activities will be published soon. If you would like to offer a calming activity, please contact Nancy DeLaura at vicepresident@bvuuf.org no later than October 31st. Look for updates in Connections Weekly. Next Sunday, November 3rd at 2 p.m., join us here in the sanctuary for a captivating performance by the talented singer-songwriters Julian Taylor and Chris Matthews. Experience their soulful voices, heartfelt lyrics, and dynamic stage presence. This is my first time doing this. Thank you all for your patience. So, come to the concert for Julian Taylor and Chris Matthews as they present their unique songs of struggle, hope, and justice. Take a flyer from the foyer or see our website or Connections Weekly for tickets. I invite you all to stay seated for the postlude to enjoy it, and then say hi to Reverend Barbara on your way to conversation and refreshments in the fellowship hall, or stay online to connect with each other through Zoom.